Good evening, folks, and a hearty welcome to our drive-in theater. We have a wonderful evening's entertainment lined up for you, one that will provide several hours of pleasurable relaxation and diversion for you and your family. Did you fail to dress up for tonight's show? No tie, an old shirt and slacks, a house dress? Well, don't give it a thought. We're glad you came as you are. We just want you to enjoy yourselves. Don't forget to visit our refreshment center during the intermission or any time. You love the tasty array of snacks we have to offer. So will the youngsters. Everything is quality and so good. We hope you'll make this a weekly visit. Bring the family. Bring your friends. There are always wonderful new pictures to see, delightful snacks to nibble, a gay, pleasant evening for all. Oh, a word of caution. Don't drive over 10 miles an hour in the theater area for your safety's sake. And Mom or Pop, go with the kids when they leave the car. We hope you have a wonderful time. Come back soon. Wouldn't some hot buttered popcorn hit the spot right now? Extra fluffy, extra big kernels of it popped to perfection. Then drenched with the golden goodness of pure sweet creamery butter. Can't you just taste it? We heat the container extra high, but you better buy 2 more for the rest of the family. Piping hot, golden buttered popcorn at the refreshment center right now.
She-gods of Shark Reef, using underwater horrors to hold island beauties imprisoned by fear of voodoo witchcraft. Polynesian girls dancing dreams of love. See their strictly taboo underwater romance. See a young girl fight a killer shark. See She-gods of Shark Reef in beautiful color.
Feed me food.
Oh, take it easy, Dracula. What do you think I'm carrying here, my dirty laundry?
Where a man-eating, talking plant gives homicide something to think about.
I didn't do it.
Do what?
Whatever.
Ever see this man?
Man, see picture.
Why are you so nervous?
Oh, boy, you kiss good, Audrey.
Oh, I guess I just have a good kisser.
Now you will do as I say.
Yes, master.
You will go out and find me some food.
Yes, master.
What's the matter? Don't you like me?
Too bony.
Too bony? Nobody ever told me that before.
Beef is better than veal.
Ah, you're such a dodo. What do you call this? Chopped liver? Alone. Just the 2 of us. Together.
A woman possessed by love. A man obsessed by terror. Only Edgar Allan Poe, who knew intimately the tortures of madness, could create such ever-increasing suspense. Only an artist of unique talent and unusual sensitivity could live so demanding a role, believing he is destined to be buried alive. No matter who he destroyed, no matter how desperately he fought, his life became a nightmare of death.
No! You're dead! No.
Until reality and madness became one.
If his father was prematurely interred,
I heard his voice.
All right, then prove it.
I will.
You are about to enjoy an experience in extreme terror.
I'm alive. Can't you hear me? I'm alive, alive, alive. Someone help me.
Hey, kids, how would you like to hear this on the screen instead of the great show you came to see? That's what you sound like. Honest. Please cooperate and do your part in keeping this theater quiet so everyone, including you, can enjoy it. Now remember, lots of adults and kids, too, paid admission to enjoy the show. We must insist on absolute quiet. Otherwise, we will be forced to evict all disturbance makers from the theater. Those asked to leave today will be refused admission to this theater in the future. Thank you.
All right, well, hello. Hello, everyone. All those of you already in the chat. Queen, good to see you. Yorick, Mo, Jacob, welcome, everyone. And as you see, I've been watching the comments here as well, getting ready for tonight's live stream in memory of Roger Corman, who passed away here on the 9th. And Ray Milland, yes. Ray Milland is awesome. I love all of his movies with AIP. So it's Premature Burial, X-Man with X-Ray Eyes, and the third one, the apocalyptic one that I can't remember off the top of my head right now for some reason. Let me... what was that one again? You'd think I would remember it because I enjoyed it. But you'd be wrong, apparently. But Ray Milland is so good. He's an interesting case because it's like the Poe movies, Corman's Poe movies, it's sort of Vincent Price. That's who it's most associated with, right? And that's the epic thing. Panic in the Year Zero. There we go. That's the other Ray Milland movie. But it took getting rid of Vincent Price for the Poe series to really distill down to its essence, which is the Premature Burial. And you can see how Price would have done that role that Ray Milland was in, but it definitely would have been a different movie without Ray Milland's gravitas in it. So, yeah. In fact, I would even potentially, I was thinking about this leading up to tonight as well, is if we talked about like a top 10 or something like that, what would be my top Corman movie? And it might actually be Premature Burial, which has a lot to do with Ray Milland's performance as well. And yeah, Panic in the Year Zero. So that's the one of two apocalyptic movies that Roger Corman made. Yeah, Frankie Avalon was in Panic in Year Zero as well. The Day the World Ended or whatever is the other one. But Panic in the Year Zero was like that's like really aiming for the realism in how would people react to a nuclear holocaust, and Milland becoming exactly the thing that he's afraid of. That like he's the one that's going around the countryside robbing everything. So it's like oops. But also the fact that it like how fearlessly it shows life in a state of nature and things that it depicts, or you all but depicts. Um, Pretty daring for the time in which Panic in the Year Zero was made. Except that one's actually not a Corman movie. Panic in the Year Zero was not actually directed by him. No, have not seen Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. I actually haven't seen any of the new Planet of the Apes movies. So, but to be fair, I haven't seen any of the old ones either. So, I don't know. I like King Kong, but Planet of the Apes, maybe sometime I'll actually sit down and watch them all. But as I've been saying, tonight's theme is, of course, Roger Corman, who passed away here recently. And while the number of movies that he personally directed is actually surprisingly small, he produced hundreds of movies, and launched the careers of so many directors in sort of Hollywood's new wave. There with Coppola and Dante and Cameron and all of those. So like even though like none of his movies are in themselves Oscar material, he definitely deserved his lifetime achievement Oscar that he got for just his impact, at least behind the camera, on the film industry. Which said though is that when you actually watch his movies through, it's which I've been doing like all this week. I've been on a bender of Roger Corman movies. They're actually surprisingly good. Like, when you think, oh, he's the king of the B movies, he's the king of bad movies. Actually, they're not bad movies. They're certainly executed with a nominal amount of money, but a lot of the ideas and the themes and the stories and stuff are like perfectly good, serviceable films. Even something like Attack of the Crab Monsters is like actually really terrifying. The concepts in there. So if you actually like overlook the sort of financial limitations and restrictions on his films, they're actually like really interesting consummate horror and sci-fi movies. At least from that side of things. Haven't watched too many of his like teenage rock and roll dramas and that sort of thing. But yeah, so that's what we're giving tribute here tonight. Creature Otaku liked The Raven, made him laugh his arse off. Yeah, it's a good one. Again, it's when you distill when you look at the whole Poe cycle, weirdly enough, a lot of the movies I really like in it weren't made by Corman either. Like, my favorite in the whole sort of broader cycle is Comedy of Terrors, which actually wasn't directed by Corman. But of the ones Corman did, I would say The Premature Burial is my favorite, but Raven is up there. Tales of Terror, I think, is also a good one. Just have to make sure that actually was made by him as well. Yeah, so we got Pit in the Pendulum, Premature Burial, Tower of London, Tales of Terror. Yeah. It's because that one has that the Cask of Amontillado, nice comedic thing in there. Corman made so many movies, both as director and producer. Yeah, definitely. Raven might be Corman's best movie. Yeah, I mean it. We all have a favorite one, I'm sure. Rex asks, "Do I prefer Mr. or Dr. Cory?" Just Cory is fine, or Monster Kid, or MKC. It's all good. I don't have a doctorate, so I can't properly be called Dr. Cory. He owned 2 production companies, New Horizons and New Concord. Yeah. I consider Corman during the AIP years to be his most creative and productive period. Yeah, I would agree. Even like it's been interesting because I've mostly been focusing as I've been doing this Corman bender here the last week, focusing on his early films. So a lot of his stuff with like allied artists and that sort of thing. But like his work in the 50s is crude by a lot of standards. But again, like really fascinating work as well. Like The Undead is an interesting movie. Attack of the Crab Monsters is got a disturbing, very disturbing sort of premise in there. I'm trying to remember if it's Conquered the World, but it reminded me a lot of Robot Monster, but way more interesting than Robot Monster. Robot Monster is like it's it's so iconic of a movie, and especially like for how bad it is. Like it's often spoken of in the same breath as Plan 9. But Robot Monster is also like painfully boring as well. It's just because it's so insane that it's remembered. I'm interested. I've seen a little Robot Monster doll around that I'm kind of interested in getting. But whereas like It Conquered the World, it was reminding me of that of Robot Monster, but way better movie. Like it's way more engaging and interesting movie than that. So. Um, but yeah, and War of the Satellites actually was the last one I watched. That was also a really good movie, surprisingly. Um, and then Teenage Caveman was like bad until the final twist. And the final twist, which I'm not going to reveal because I don't want to spoil it for anybody who hasn't seen it. The final twist, it like redeemed the whole movie for me. Didn't make it better, but it made it like, oh, that's actually, that's interesting. Then you get his comedies as well. But yeah, let's keep going on and on and on here, which I guess is the point of tonight, is that it's talking about Roger Corman. AIP was Corman's golden age. Yeah, AIP wouldn't have existed without Corman. Yeah, for sure. I do wish he had more dinosaur films. Yeah, Teenage Caveman. But like, yeah, Teenage Caveman being his main dinosaur film, that he actually directed, not like Carnosaur or whatever. I think that was him who produced that. When you get the final twist of Teenage Caveman, then the quasi dinosaurs in it make more sense. Swiftly during his AIP years, yeah. Mike Connors was in Day the World Ended. Robert Vaughn was in Teenage Caveman, yeah. Attack of the Crab Monsters is like an insane episode of Gilligan's Island. Oh my god, yes. Like, I mean that it's like The Thing from Another World meets, or not even like The Thing, like John Carpenter's The Thing meets Gilligan's Island. Like I thought Matango was a bad day on the island, but then you see Attack of the Crab Monsters, and it's just like, oh my god, ugh, gross. Like just my wife and I were discussing, like what it would have been, would it be like to have that happen to. Should I just give spoilers? Like, come on, these movies are forever. Like, if you haven't seen it yet, do it. So we got spoilers ahead. So leave if you don't want spoilers, or just turn off the audio for the next little while. Yeah, Attack of the Crab Monsters. Like, okay, it's bad enough to be eaten by giant radioactive crabs, but then for them to like absorb your matter and your brain, and now your consciousness is part of this giant crab, and I was talking in your voice. Like, oh my god. Like, my wife's a bit like, whatever, it's not that scary. I'm like, honey, if you were eaten by a giant crab and then it started talking to me, that would terrify me. So yeah, Crab Monsters is like a surprisingly terrifying movie. Like a low budget, but like that premise is just like, oh my god. So highly entertaining as well. And yes, another one to add to the rotation of sci-fi B movies and even A movies to show in your home tiki bar. It's like the Matango, Attack of the Crab Monsters, King Kong, of course. There you go. And some of like the Showa era Godzilla Island movies. Not She Gods of Shark Reef though. I like that's another Corman movie, She Gods of Shark Reef, which is totally playing into the whole mid-century tiki Polynesian vibe, but it's like really not very good. I love the poster for it. I love the idea of it existing. I just wish the movie itself was actually better. It's kind of a boring movie, but it's also one of his first ones in color, I think. At least sort of genre type ones in color. And it doesn't have quite the same pull or cachet as some of the like black and white ones. And I mean, most of you missed it, but it's actually in my theater preview roll at the beginning here, actually played the trailer for it. It looked better in black and white. But yeah, it just doesn't. The thing about She Gods of Shark Reef just doesn't pull together in quite the right way. But I want it to be good because it's kind of like the whole. It's a Roger Corman AIP sort of tiki movie, but doesn't quite pull it all together. Beverly Garland really let it have it. Yeah, Beverly Garland, not too bad on the eyes either. I just realized Frankenstein Conquers the World was distributed by AIP, and he worked on Voyage to the Prehistoric Planet. Correct. Yeah, AIP had the distribution for a lot of those Showa Godzilla movies and other Toho films. So for however much they did get distributed in North America, that was due to AIP. Man from Uncle. Okay. Martin. Welcome, Martin. I have not seen Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes yet because I have not seen the other Planet of the Apes movies. So I maybe someday I should just go like do a bender and do like an all-day fest of just watching them all. I guess starting with the new ones and then going to the old ones. I don't know. Yeah, I think Teenage Caveman needs some more love. Not a lot, but a little. Yeah, Teenage Caveman needs a little more love, just a tiny bit more love. Yeah, it's Teenage Caveman. Like I said, and this is what I'm not going to give away the twist for. I don't anybody in the chat give away the twist either. But it's like it starts as like this kind of pedestrian, like okay, it's ridiculous cavemen that are perfectly coiffed and perfectly like clean shaven and terrible loincloths and bows and arrows and things like that, and bad stock footage from 1 million BC and all sort of stuff. But then that twist at the end hits, and it's just like, oh, okay, I get it now, and it all comes together. And that actually is what makes it like, however decent it might be, that's what does it, is that twist. So, yeah. Yeah, dinosaurs and stock footage from 1 million BC. Yes, a lot of that. And actually, I noticed in I think it's War of the Satellites as well. They use stock footage from 1 million BC. Not the dinosaurs, but like the earthquake footage and stuff like that is also reused in War of the Satellites. Attack the Crab Monster even has a professor from Gilligan. Well, there you go. Worst Gilligan's Island ever. Yeah, crab monsters are ugly. Yes, they are. I mean, that's the thing, right? It's like the financial limitations drag it down a little bit. If you could have like, well, today would be like a modern CGI, but if you could have like John Carpenter's Attack of the Crab Monsters, like that would have been, like that would be kind of cool. That's a movie that you kind of could remake. I mean, you'd lose something by making it a modern movie that it had as a B movie. But if you're looking for something with interesting premise that you could build on and have a big CGI, then Attack of the Crab Monsters would actually be a good candidate. She Gods of Shark Reef probably had a bigger budget than some of the other Corman films. Probably, I mean, it was mostly location shooting, by the looks of things. So, yeah, but it probably spent it all on getting there and getting the crew there. The plot itself is just kind of like, okay. And, the poster promises like the giant tiki gods and women being assailed by sharks and things like that. And it's like one nurse shark and no tiki statues to speak of. It's just like, oh, that's unfortunate. So it feels like it could have been more. If it had like a Poe film budget, it might have something might have pulled together. It had a better cast too. It had better actors in it. It might have done more. Although, would we want to see Vincent Price as a Polynesian shaman? I don't know about that, but yeah. What do you think of Swamp Women? I don't think much about Swamp Women. It's another one of those sort of early. When was that one made? Swamp Women. Oh yeah, that's one of the early ones. 56. I don't know. It really. I couldn't even tell you what the plot of it was. It just struck me as sort of like it's that like really like trashy sort of like you're here to see scantily clad women having cat fights in the swamp. And that's why you're watching this movie. And if you want that sort of thing, then great. That's what it's for. That sort of exploitation films. So I don't really have an opinion about Swamp Women other than that, because it wasn't really super memorable to me, impactful on me. But I mean, if you like it, great. So more power to you. Maybe you can tell us what you like about it so much and help us understand it. Hey, Richard, no! Stop giving it away. For someone who's supposed to be a caveman, Robert Vaughn had really nice shave. Yes, he did. A great shave, and more gentle and delicate hand movements than one would expect of someone who survives outside. Yes, when he's holding the bow and arrow like this, like, oh, okay, poor form. But Fall of the House of Usher was Corman's first Poe adaptation. Yes, it was. And I mean, that's a whole thing to talk about. Like that's almost like a subset. We could just do a whole live stream on just the Poe movies. I've done a video on just the Poe movies and why they're so amazing. But yeah, I like House of Usher. I mean, I like them all. That's the thing, right? Like, don't if I start putting them on a hierarchy of which ones I like more, I do like them all. It's just where they fit. And House of Usher was good. Introduces the franchise, the Poe cycle franchise. It hasn't quite hit and it introduces the themes. The running theme of all of the Poe movies is the idea of the unquiet dead. That there are secrets, there are family derangements, and sometimes actual corpses that don't stay dead. They don't stay buried. That is the running theme through all of these movies. It starts with the House of Usher. And it's good. It's great. It's just, you can see that it's just beginning with Fall of the House of Usher, and then it sort of gets refined over the coming movies, Pit and the Pendulum, and so on. And then when it gets to Premature Burial, it's like that's when they got it figured out, and weirdly enough, it involved like getting rid of Vincent Price and getting in Ray Milland to really bring out like what is at the core of those Poe movies. That idea of unquiet dead and psychoses that don't stay hidden and secrets that don't stay hidden and the dead who don't stay buried. And it's like perfect. It's dramatically perfect. The lurid lighting in it is what I think really impacts me with Premature Burial. It is just these beautiful lurid tones in there. It's like, he's not doing it in black and white, so he figures out, okay, go to the opposite extreme then. You go to like really super lurid tones and really dramatic lighting. And it's just it's perfect. And then yeah, after Premature Burial, they start to mix it up a bit and introduce comedy and more esoteric ideas, and you get like Mask of Red Death, which is more like an art film than it is like a horror movie. And again, The Raven, which is a comedy, Tales of Terror, has that spread because there's 3 different stories in there, and on it goes. So it's like, yeah, you see it getting refined, but yeah, it starts with Fall of the House of Usher, and it's it wouldn't have existed without it, right? So it's, again, I love all of them, and you can see in Fall of the House of Usher where it starts and how well it starts and how it builds on that. So yeah, Beverly Garland stole the Swamp Women. Corman liked her so much, he used her again, and it conquered the world. Yep, and understandably so. Right, I'm trying to remember. Was she in the Wasp Woman? You think I see? I've watched so many of these; they all sort of kind of blend together. So, who was in the Wasp Woman? Susan Cabot. Okay, was the Wasp Woman. Let's see, which Corman had a cameo in. Yeah. I've been going through every Corman film. Today I finally made it to Sharktopus. Oh, good lord. Like every single one, you've made it all the way to Sharktopus? Like all 500 and whatever? I love Corman's early low-budget films like Undead and Swamp and Wasp Woman. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, you definitely see this change when he starts the Poe cycle. That's like a different phase of like Corman's filmmaking maturity. Before the Poe cycle, yeah, it's more low budget. Um, like granted, House of Usher and Last Woman on Earth and Little Shop of Horrors all came out in the same year, so it's like okay, um, but you can kind of tell like House of Usher had the production values, and Last Woman on Earth and Little Shop of Horrors were like, well, not exactly. um, Last Woman on Earth is interesting concepts, but not great execution. Little Shop of Horrors is excellent. Little Shop of Horrors is great. But yeah, his early low budget films are the ones I've mostly been concentrating on as in my week long sort of watching marathon of Corman movies. Um, and yeah, they vary a bit, but said a lot of interesting ideas there that are sort of belied by the financial limitations of them. Um, Remember, Hazel Court was in Mask of Red Death. Hazel Court was in a lot of them, for which I am glad. A bit of a Hammer connection, Queen, yeah. The Wasp Woman can easily be dispatched with either a can of Raid or a fly swatter. Yeah. Well, like we were actually watching that like either last night or the night before. And yeah, she's a werewasp. And what do you do with a werewasp? A silver can of Raid, I guess. Silver fly swatter. Um, but Wasp Woman was also good though. It reminded me a lot of The Leech Woman as well, because both movies sort of deal with sort of female beauty standards and aging and like patriarchy and stuff like that. So very similar themes in there as well, um, and both interesting in their own different ways, and how they do that, but both sort of the same essential sort of um, thread of like the costs of vanity and maintaining these sort of these beauty standards that don't allow women to age gracefully. You know, so they're both good films. So Leech Woman and the Wasp Woman. Neither of which people would think to look at and think to see like, oh, this is like some treatise on beauty standards and patriarchy. But there they are. Well, these movies are a lot better than people give them credit for. Undead was so imaginative. Yeah. That was another one I watched in this past week. Um, yeah, it's interesting premise. It's sort of like Assassin's Creed before Assassin's Creed, of like past life regression and going back in time and trying to solve mysteries and whatnot. And that sort of final moral decision about like, you know, if you were given the knowledge of what would happen in the future with like your soul or your offspring or whatever, but you were given a chance to change something horrible about your life now, but it would undo all of that in the future, what would you do? So that it's interesting sort of moral quandary, bit of an interesting trolley problem, as it were. I adored all of Beverly Garland's outfits. Yeah, yeah, the classic like '50s look with the the skirt with the petticoats underneath and the collared top and stuff. Like, yeah, I love that look. Um, yes, I haven't slept for a few days and have missed classes, but it's a dead week and I can study while watch them. Well, there you go. That's if you're not sleeping, that certainly gives a lot of extra time to watch Corman movies. A lot of people don't remember Machine Gun Kelly, in which Corman worked with a young Charles Bronson. I have not seen Machine Gun Kelly, unfortunately. I should. I should make a point of seeing more of Corman's non horror, non sci-fi movies, um, just so I can say I've given them a fair assessment. You know, um, I wouldn't say that Corman is one of my favorite directors. In terms of like, I typically haven't listed him, but I probably should. Now that I've seen so many of his films, it's just weird. Like nobody really necessarily says that Corman was one of their favorite directors because of the limitations of his films. Kind of like admitting I like bad movies, but um, point is, I should make a point of seeing more of his non horror, non sci-fi films. Um, there were some other ones I was gonna try and see. I wasn't saying Machine Gun Kelly, but stuff like Rock All Night, Teenage Doll, Carnival Rock, Sorority Girl, like that sort of string of films. Um, I was kind of thinking that maybe I would get around to watching those sometime soon. I always get the leech woman confused with the giant leeches. Very different movies. Yes. Very different movies. The leech woman is, straying from Corman for a second. The leech woman is like the perfect example of how those Universal Atomic Age film from the 50s have like terrible titles that totally misdirect from how interesting the movie actually is. So like the leech woman sounds like this woman who turns into like a were-leech, when really it's this movie about, again, patriarchy and beauty standards and aging and stuff like that. Monster on the Campus was sound okay. It's like uh, what it says on the title, right? But it's actually like this interesting sort of evolutionary horror of like what if things started de-evolving. Um, the monolith monsters sounds kind of like okay, whatever, but actually it's this really interesting premise of like just this self-replicating meteorite that is going to doom the planet because it happened to land on a planet with water, and water is what makes it self-replicate. So it's just like there's all these interesting movies that have these terrible titles. Like they're fun titles, but they belie what the movie's actually about, and that's unfortunate. But I don't know if I have a better title for them. What about the saga of the Viking women and their voyage to the waters of the Great Sea Serpent? I have not seen that one. That should be on the list of what to see, because I have not seen that one, unfortunately. Did you see Zontar, the Thing from Venus? I have not seen that either. Susan Cabot was also in that one. Yeah, Zontar was a remake of It Conquered the World. Okay. Which do you prefer, A Bucket of Blood or Little Shop of Horrors? Little Shop of Horrors. A Bucket of Blood is fun. It's a very dry satire in the sense that it's not necessarily like winking and nudging at you that it's a comedy. Like it's not making jokes, but it is funny because it's a satire on sort of beatnik art scene and that sort of thing. So it's poking satirical fun at the pretensions of it, but it's not making jokes in the same way that like Little Shop of Horrors is, or even Creature from the Haunted Sea, which is also a good one. Like Creature from the Haunted Sea, it's like obviously a spy satire, and like the guy turns around, he's got like the terrible fake mustache on and stuff, and it's like, yeah, this is obviously a joke. Whereas Bucket of Blood, if you weren't in on the joke, then you just think, okay, it's a straightforward like murder mystery kind of movie. So, which is fine, and it is a fine movie. I did enjoy it. But I would say of the two of those, I like Little Shop of Horrors more because it is more of an obvious comedy. But yeah. I should have a crush on Susan Berman. Okay. Roger Corman is probably my favorite director. I aspire to be the next Roger Corman. You know what, Rex? That is awesome. That is awesome. Yeah, I said that he wasn't mine just in the sense of like I've never really thought about it that way. Because I've sort of thought about it more in terms of like I like the Poe cycle, which includes films by Corman but also films not by Corman. Um, and then like I have like multiple DVD sets of Corman movies. Um, so it's not something I don't like him. I've never really thought about him as like a favorite director. If I think about my favorite directors, um, it's directors whose work has had like a major emotional impact on me. um, so like for a while, one of my favorite directors was Jean-Pierre Jeunet. So like the guy that did like Amélie. Um, he was a favorite director of mine for a while because his movies had a very big emotional impact on me. I'm trying to think of who else is a favorite director of mine. Well, I mean, my favorite director currently and for all time is Georges Méliès, which is like, weird to say because he's like one of the earliest directors ever. But yeah, Trip to the Moon, 1902, that's him. Because his, even though it's like simple, 10-minute long films, if that, they're like simple little trick films, but they have such a beautiful, sort of romantic vision of life in them, and their staginess draws that out. That like, yeah, it has a huge emotional impact on me. Um, in fact, the best thing about Hugo, the movie Hugo, was being able to see those clips from um, A Trip to the Moon on the big screen. Um, the rest of Hugo's like, yeah, it's okay. Um, but yeah, so I've never really thought about Corman because I've never experienced Corman's films as having like this huge emotional impact on me. But I do like them. Like there's ones I criticize, like I've done, like She Gods of Shark Reef wasn't that great. Swamp Women I didn't really care for it all that much. Um, the Terror is not worth the money I've seen people trying to sell it for. Um, but I will say that on the balance, I do enjoy Corman's movies quite a lot. So I suppose technically I should say he is one of my favorite directors. So I watch a lot of stuff by him. So, um, but the fact that Rex, you want to sort of follow in his footsteps and be a low budget filmmaking god is awesome. Go for it. They're both basically the same movie. Yeah. Viking Women was Corman's attempt at sword and sorcery. Okay, so sold. Now I have to make a point of seeing Viking Women. What are your thoughts on The Pit and the Pendulum? I liked it. Like I said, I like all of them, all the Poe cycle movies. Yeah, it's one of the lower ones for me because it's still building up to like the premature burial, like the distillation, pure distillation of the Poe movie theme of the Unquiet Dead. In this case, that the psychosis in this family that manifests through inquisitorial torture um, rears itself up. Um, I mean, beautiful sets, beautiful acting, all that stuff is great. I do like the movie. I'd say it's a slightly lower one because it doesn't have quite a, to me, it doesn't have quite a unique hook to it. So the premature burial's hook, it doesn't have Price in it, and it has that. It's like the perfect Poe movie. And then like Tales of Terror has that hook in that it's like that anthology, and one of them is a comedy. The Raven has that hook of being comedy. Um, the Mask of Red Death has that hook of being more like an art film. Whereas Pit and the Pendulum isn't quite there. Haunted Castle has that hook of being a Lovecraft story, actually. So yeah, again, it's like I like it. I like them all. It's just on the scale, it's kind of a bit lower. Piece of Million Eyes is one of my favorite movies. Cool. All I remember about Pitt was that Barbara Steele was in it. Barbara Steele was amazing in Black Sunday. Black Sunday scared me to death when I was a kid. Thanks for support. Have you watched the Carnosaur movies? I have not watched the Carnosaur movies. That, how do I say this? It came at a weird time. Speaking of Carnosaur, came at a weird time where it was made in reaction to Jurassic Park, right? And the runaway popularity of Jurassic Park, which is what actually embarked me back into a love of prehistoric life. Like as a kid, I liked like dinosaurs and stuff, and I kind of grew out of that. And then Jurassic Park like dumped me headlong back into it. And now I've got like, where do I keep my fossils? I got like a gazillion fossils in here. Where's my, oh, there. Oh, here's a good one. Oh, look, it's a baby woolly, where's the camera? It's a baby woolly mammoth tooth right there. Cool. All right. I just pulled a baby woolly mammoth tooth out of a drawer. So Jurassic Park hit me there, and you would think that would make me want to see every dinosaur movie. But it did not, because it also was my teenage years. I graduated high school in 95. So that actually all sort of coalesced to make me a big snob about dinosaur movies, and I still am a bit of a snob about dinosaur movies. So I have not seen Carnosaur. There's a lot of there's actually a surprising number of dinosaur movies I have not seen, um, because it's one of those subjects where I'm like, I know enough about it that I'm not a lot of fun to watch a dinosaur movie with, because it's like, that's wrong. That's also wrong. That is also wrong. I can give them a pass for other reasons. Like I give, well, actually, like King Kong is weird because it's like the dinosaurs are actually really good based on what science knew at the time. There's like three-dimensionalized models of Charles Knight paintings, and then you kind of like, okay, it's a fantasy film. The dinosaurs are thrown in there with the giant monkey, and it's just such a great film on its own. Same with the Lost World. Their Charles Knight paintings come to life. Still the most accurate dinosaurs ever made, ever filmed, based on what science knew at the time. And it's just a great movie on its own. Whereas like a lot of movies, it's like they're not great movies on their own. They're just made to cash in on dinosaurs. And if the dinosaurs aren't even good in them, then it's like, okay. So yeah, that's why I haven't actually seen a lot of dinosaur movies, even though I love dinosaurs and prehistoric life. I do like documentaries though. Like there's that it was on like Apple, I think it was Apple Plus, wherever it was, or Netflix. There was some recent documentary series that was the history. Yeah, no, it's the Morgan Freeman one, Life on Earth, and it's great. It is so good, and just the drama of seeing prehistoric life in CGI just in a documentary is fine for me. So yeah. So as I say, I've not seen Carnosaur. So, sorry about that. Jack Nicholson first worked with Corman in Little Shop. He later appeared in The Raven and The Terror. Yeah, it's so weird seeing like very young Jack Nicholson. The Terror was an editor's nightmare. The Terror was put together by editing several separate films. Was it? I thought that The Terror was just thrown together because they came in under time and under budget on The Raven. And so they just used they threw together a script and just like filmed this thing over like a day or two. They had extra left over from The Raven. That's what I thought happened with The Terror. I think some of it was actually outtakes from The Raven. Actually, Destroy All Monsters was better than Jurassic Park. Well, I mean, Destroy All Monsters is a hell of a movie. I love Destroy All Monsters. It's like my favorite, not counting the original Gojira, like the 1954, like that's in a class of its own. But you think like all the Showa films after that, Destroy All Monsters is like my favorite of the Showa movies. It's like, okay, for Godzilla. Okay, so it's like King Kong Escapes, Destroy All Monsters, Invasion of Astro Monster, and like Godzilla versus Hedorah, I think would be my top 4 after the original Godzilla. So yeah. It's hard to beat Destroy All Monsters. Come on. That's what I got my whole diorama over here for. This is my Destroy All Monsters diorama. Get out of the way. There we go. Destroy All Monsters. Right there. Let's see. The Tomb of Ligeia is probably Corman's best Poe film. Yeah. I can see that argument. I didn't much care for how it sacrificed... God, this thread is like... This live stream is me trying to say what I don't like about Corman movies. That's not what I mean. I like them all. I do enjoy them. The thing where Tomb of Ligeia didn't do for me is I like the lurid artifice of Premature Burial, the lighting and the sets and everything. So Tomb of Ligeia, it has so much location shooting, and it doesn't have a lot of the same lurid tones. Like you get the sort of the grayness of the castle, which makes those splashes of like red and stuff really pop. That's really interesting. But sort of visually, it's just sort of like, it's kind of just like, meh. It's like a kind of a beige movie, which is like, eh. Like I really liked how lurid Premature Burial was, but again, I like them all. So don't get me wrong. I have definitely no qualms about just watching them all just in a bender. because they're all really good. Remember Carnosaur had terrible special effects. I love Jack Nicholson in Return of the Creature. Was he in Return of the Creature? I should probably remember that. I got so many movies floating around up in my head. Sometimes it's hard to keep it straight. I remember they were able to use Boris Karloff for The Terror. He had about a week left over in his contract for The Raven. Yeah. Got to see you and I are on the same page. Didn't AIP distribute Destroy All Monsters in the US? Yes, they did. Yeah. Like I said, American International had the distribution for most of the Toho Showa films. So for what did get over here, AIP was responsible for a lot of it. But yeah. So thank you, AIP. I mean, that's a whole thing as well. Like, this is kind of a bit of a by default AIP live stream, because Corman did so much work with AIP. But like, AIP is a whole thing. We could do a whole live stream on just it, and go beyond the Corman stuff even to all the other movies AIP made and the stuff they distributed, like Godzilla movies. Yep, AIP did bring the DAM here. And there's the beach movies too, were AIP. So it's like AIP is like Edgar Allan Poe importing Godzilla movies and Frankie Avalon and Annette Funicello beach movies. Like, okay. And there's like I Was a Teenage Juvenile Delinquent and all that sort of stuff. But then, so the beach movies are kind of like the family-friendlier version of those, like, I Was a Teenage biker type movies. Tomb of Lygia was the one film that truly reflected Poe's worldview on screen. Thematically, it's the closest that comes to his stories. Oh yeah, I can see that. Certainly. I tend to, with movies, I tend to view them more as their own thing than necessarily in comparison with the works that they're based on. Because I've just learned over time, it's like, books and movies are different media. So it's hard to do a one-to-one adaptation and a one-to-one comparison. So it's like, okay, the movie is not going to be the book. So what does the movie bring to itself? So it's kind of, to me, and a little bit irrelevant, how close the Poe movies are to the source material. I mean, they're not like The Raven. Raven is like a poem. It's more like, what do those movies say on their own for themselves, and how do they work as a body of work, regardless of how much they actually reflect what Poe thought. But I mean, certainly if that is the concern, then I can see how Tomb of Lygia would be definitely one of more your favorite type ones. I mean, I actually count Haunted Palace as one of my favorite Lovecraft movies, and that's ostensibly a Poe movie. So, when are you going to make What Makes Bela Lugosi Meets the Brooklyn Gorilla so great? I will get around to it, Rex. I will get around to it someday, I'm sure. I haven't been making any videos lately, because I have been working to death. So I was saying this last live stream that I have started a new job, and on top of that, I'm also doing my summer tour guiding. So I'm working part-time at this one thing and also doing tour guiding and some other things. So I just don't have time to make a lot of videos right now, which is unfortunate because I would like to. But it's sort of like, what time I do have off, I'm either sleeping or I'm going out and touching grass. Like yesterday, we opted to go. I had a day off, so we opted to go out to a national park instead of staying home and working on videos. So I apologize for that, but as well, eventually maybe I'll get around to What Makes Bela Lugosi Meets Brooklyn Gorilla so great. Certainly a very underrated performance of Vincent Price in that film, Queen. Yeah, definitely. It's definitely Vincent Price in a more is Tomb of Lygia. Definitely Vincent Price doing it more seriously. He's not like chewing up the screen like that. Tomb of Lygia and House of Usher, if I have a lot in common, it's like first and last. Um, that it's really a much more subdued performance by Price, which is good in its own way. I mean, I think Vincent is at his best when he's like really sardonic. So like I love him in my favorite movie of his, which is Comedy of Terrors. He's absolutely brilliant in Comedy of Terrors. He's just like absolutely perfect. Like, his comic delivery is great. Um, but yeah, definitely a much more subdued and dramatic performance in House of Usher and Tomb of Lygia. I have Annette Funicello on CD. Yeah, I have I have tracks from Hawaiian Annette. Hawaiian Annette. Um, that one. A few other tracks sort of in my Disney playlist. Um, but yeah, she wasn't great vocalist, but she definitely captures the era. She's definitely a product of that era, and so if you're into that era, then you kind of have to be into Annette Funicello. Eric Von Zipper was the real star of the Beach Party movies. Yeah, he's great. You stupids. Yeah. There's actually a band, like a local rock band called the Von Zippers as well. I keep thinking of them when I watch like Beach Party and stuff. Um, but yeah, the Eric Von Zipper and his gang really pull it together. Add that bit of extra. Um, it's see now I'm gonna hyperanalyze it. It's because like the fundamental dynamic of the Beach Party movies, right, is that you have these cool, fun-loving kids doing their thing, living their own lives against the square adults. But then you also have this foil of like the like real delinquent juveniles, right, the biker gang, and so how the fun that these kids and their beach sexcapades are having is really wholesome relative to full-on bikers, right? So they're against the bikers and they're against the squares. Um, Great to hear. Hope your workload clears up. Yeah, well, we'll see. It's going to be big over the summer. It's going to be a lot over the summer. I probably won't get a whole lot of videos done over the summer. I'm going to try and keep the live streams at least, so at least keep a monthly live stream going. Um, but yeah, it's the thing is like it's I have videos where I put a lot of work into them and they get low views. I have some videos where I put a lot of work on them and they get high views. I get some videos where I'm just like sitting here just shooting the breeze for 20 minutes and they get high views or low views. It all depends on the topic. The number one topic being Godzilla. Um, so it's sort of like it's even hard to predict what to make videos about other than what just at the moment is inspiring me. So it's like I just really feel like talking about how great this one movie is. I mean, I don't even have time to do anything in the real world. Making that time to do the videos is a bit challenging. So we'll see how it goes. What I feel compelled to make videos about in the next couple months here. Um, I just hope that like it doesn't. I don't want things to get too stagnant. I mean, granted, I get like maybe one new subscriber a day, if that. Um, maybe like 2 or 3 a week. Um, so it's not doesn't incentivize me to do a whole lot of work on it. But I don't want the channel to become totally moribund and totally die um, before like September hits when my workload will lighten considerably because my current job is like the tour guiding ends at the end of September, but this new job that I've started is only goes so it's a term contract until the end of August. So after that, then I'll have some more time and hopefully more energy to sort of apply to like making some more fun videos. Some of the horror stars from AIP had cameos in the Beach Party movies, including Boris Karloff, Vincent Price, and Peter Lorre. Yeah, Vincent Price's cameo in Beach Party is great. I like how Von Zipper gang was called the Rats. The female members were called the Mice. Yeah. Sorry, is it dinner? What did I miss? Oh, Martin, we've just been chatting about Roger Corman and expanding. We've been talking about Beach Party movies for the last little bit as well. So mostly Poe and Beach Party. This is kind of moved into AIP territory. Um, I've been trying to get into tiki and beach party movies, but it's hard when you can't drink. Rex, what you want to check out, if you look up a channel called Tiki with Ray, Tiki with R-A-Y, Tiki with Ray, because he has a series on his channel called Straight Edge Tiki. Because he found that just for health reasons he needed to cut back on the alcohol, and also discovering that with tiki drinks there's an awful lot of sugar involved too. So he's going for like sugar withdrawals. But he has a whole series on straight edge tiki, so like non-alcoholic tiki drinks, and he's really pushing for that to kind of become more of an accepted thing, which is great because so much of tiki culture ends up revolving around alcohol, right? It's the tiki drinks, it's the tiki bars, and tiki conventions kind of end up being these very expensive weekend benders. So he's really kind of like pushing and pioneering the whole idea of like creating a tiki space that where you can just enjoy being in it without having to be drunk. And so check out Tiki with Ray. His stuff is great, and I've actually I've known him personally for years now. Not that we're like super close friends, but we've chatted online and stuff like that. He's a really good guy, and his channel is really cool, and that hopefully will help you with the getting into tiki without drinking. Yorick, a very underrated movie of Corman's is the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. I have not seen that one. St. Valentine's is largely forgotten today. Yeah. I did ask whether you saw the latest Planet of the Apes film. I wasn't here if you answered that. Did you? I have not, Martin, seen the most recent Planet of the Apes movie because I have not seen any of the Planet of the Apes movies. That is one that has just sort of flown under my radar. So I should. I feel like I should see the Planet of the Apes movies, both the old and new. I mean, I know what they are. I've seen the Tim Burton one. That's the one I've seen because it was part of my Tim Burton when I was a fan of Tim Burton. When Tim Burton was my favorite director, so I saw that Planet of the Apes, and I'm pretty sure I've seen the very first one, Charlton Heston one. At least in parts, I've seen it. I know what the whole twist is and everything. But I should, at some point, actually sit and watch all the Planet of the Apes movies. Remember Dick Miller played one of the assassins in that one? Thanks, I'll check him out. Have you seen Battle Beyond the Stars? Yes. Let me look that one up just so I can be clear on which Battle of the Stars in outer space beyond the whatever. Battle, where did that one go? Battle Beyond the Stars. Oh no, I haven't seen that one. 1980. No, I have not seen that one. Because it's 1980, that's why. Produced by Roger Corman. Yeah. I have not seen that one. Dick Miller was in so many Roger Corman movies. He even had a leading role in Bucket of Blood. Yeah. It's kind of weird seeing him as well, because it's like I was used to seeing him as an older person in the movies in like 80s and stuff. Now seeing young him, but even young him still looks old. So it's like, okay, Dick Miller's just sort of like always been like 50. So the original 5 films were the best. I don't like any of the CGI ones. Yeah, but I haven't seen any of them, so I can't say either way. That being the Planet of the Apes. Corman produced Battle Beyond the Stars as a remake of Seven Samurai. Oh. Interesting. Wait, wasn't Star Wars? No, Star Wars is a remake of Hidden Fortress, right? Cool. Oh, maybe I'll watch it sometime. Probably not going to rush out to do that, but maybe at some point I'll wind my way around to it. Shall have to see. I mean, for me, it's mostly like really old stuff. So 80s is like not quite really old enough for me to take like a huge interest in it. But we'll see. We'll see. All right. Dick Miller was also in Terminator and Gremlins. Yes, Gremlins is where I mainly remember him from as a kid. Martin, you're a fan of Kong and old Sky-Fi, but you haven't seen any Planet of the Apes films other than Tim Burton's. Okay, Reba, how dare you? Just joking, I'm still shocked. Well, also, here, I'll even shock you more, Martin. The Twilight Zone is my favorite TV show. So, not only that, but I'm also a huge fan of Rod Serling and Twilight Zone, and somehow I have not seen Planet of the Apes. Correct. Yeah, no. I don't know. I don't know why I haven't actually sat down and watched Planet of the Apes movies. I just haven't. Something about them just hasn't hooked my interest. But again, I feel like I should, especially now after all this. Like I have to now, or else my comment section is gonna go into revolt against me if I don't don't watch Planet of the Apes finally. James Cameron started out as assistant director for Corman and Battle Beyond the Stars. Okay. Yeah, again, that's going back to like Corman as his no one movie he made is worth an Oscar, but his influence on the film industry is almost unmatched in terms of like who his influence on new Hollywood and that whole that shift that happened in Hollywood in the 50s or in the 70s and 80s, with this whole new crop of directors like Coppola and Cameron and Dante and stuff like that. Like new Hollywood has its roots in Roger Corman, so like his influence on the industry is all the more remarkable considering that he himself just sort of like had his career producing these and directing these sort of B movies, low budget drive-in sort of movies. Ever see the Twilight Zone movie? Yes, I did see the Twilight Zone movie, and I have been haunted forever by particularly the image of the girl watching the TV with like no mouth or whatever it was. Yeah. That movie. It's thing with Twilight Zone is that I have grown to love the total package of the Twilight Zone TV show itself. Like for me now at this point, it is not Twilight Zone if it doesn't have, one of the intros, the song, the theme song, which granted it's like the last season intro is the famous one, but if it doesn't have the Rod Serling monologue, if it isn't in black and white, if it doesn't have Rod Serling's closing, if it doesn't have the bongos, all that sort of stuff, all those little trappings of the Twilight Zone, then, and in between usually a story about middle-aged men's angst, which I relate to a lot more now that I am one. If it doesn't have all those trappings, that's not really Twilight Zone. So like the 80s Twilight Zone series, like Jordan Peele's Twilight Zone, it's like I haven't bothered watching that because like it's not Twilight Zone, whatever. It's just anything that's not the bongos, the theme song, Rod Serling's monologues, that sort of stuff. It's not really Twilight Zone. It's just the name Twilight Zone slapped on a sci-fi show, or in this case, a movie. Now, granted, of course, the movie is great because of who made it, but and in fact, it's based specifically off of Twilight Zone episodes. But yeah, other than that, like that image of the girl watching the TV. Yeah, I'll always go with the classic stuff, right? Although, Twilight Zone the movie reference Third Rock from the Sun when John Lithgow and William Shatner talk about there was something on the wing of the plane. That happened to me too. Because Kelly Vic Morales. Life is without Beast with a Million Eyes is so laughable. The monster in it turns out to be invisible and can control the minds of animals and humans. What a cop out. Guess those are the million eyes. Is all the eyes it controls. There you go. What a cop out. Yeah. It did have really cool poster, Yorick. Okay, I'll look that up. Beast with a Million Eyes. Million Eyes. Oh yeah, it's a pretty cool poster. And widescreen terror scope. Ooh. Cool. Nicole Paul Birch. Directed by David Komarski. Co-produced by Roger Corman and Samuel Z. Arkoff. Released by what became AIP. Okay, cool. Add that to the list of things to watch. Nice. Funny, I've been thinking about if I were to make a home theater and what posters I would put in it. It depends on the theme. If the theme were a classic movie house, which is the one I would go with, then it's posters from the 30s. I got picked out ones that I would do. However, there would be a lot to be said for the novelty of having a drive-in theater themed home theater as well. In which case, it would have to be like 50s sci-fi movie posters. So I'd have to pick from those. I think Attack of the 50-Foot Woman would be one of them, certainly. But yeah, I'd have to go through and pick which of those posters I like the best. I also quite like the poster to It Conquered the World. Right. Yeah, that's okay. Some of the stories in Twilight Zone, the movie, were recycled from the TV show. Yeah, there was the Terror at 20,000 Feet. I forget the name of the episode, but the one with Anthony Fremont. Both of those were in the movie. Anthony Fremont, the character. Yeah, there's another. There's another Corman movie that I thought had a good poster. She Gods from Shark Reef. Great poster again. It's a good poster. Just the movie is kind of like it's okay. Not really. It's kind of meh. I wish the movie was better. That was the thing. Great poster. I wish the movie was better. The earliest film Corman made with Vincent Price was Tower of London, which was actually based on Shakespeare. Was that the earliest one he made? He said his voice getting really high. House of Usher was the first. House of Usher was 1960. Tower of London was 1962. Pretty sure Tower of London was also leftover sets as well, if I remember correctly. So leftover sets from Tale of Terror? Development. Sorry, I just... Oh, no. Okay, so it was meant to be its own movie. It wasn't just using extra sets left over. Where the Universal one used leftover sets, but... back then they had posters that were better than the movies. Yeah, definitely for She Gods of Shark Reef. Yeah. I've been building my Kong poster collection, just like 11 by 17 ones. But my favorite episode of the Twilight Zone is A Stop at Willoughby, because that one hits close. Because I am also a middle-aged man who can't cope with life and retreats into nostalgia for an idyllic turn of the century. And so it's like, it's indulging that nostalgia, but it's also a cautionary tale about it. So I like A Stop at Willoughby. For a very similar reason, I like 16mm Shrine. That's the one with the actress who just is retreating into the world of golden age Hollywood movies. Again, obvious why I would like that one. Um, and The Intruders is one that I like. That's always the first episode of Twilight Zone I ever show anybody. If somebody has not seen Twilight Zone before, and I can convince them to watch it, that is the one that I always show them. Is The Intruders. That was my first episode of Twilight Zone. I think it's a great episode, and there we go. Um, um, Shoot, what's it called? Um, it's the Shaggy God one. Um, why can't I remember his title? Probe 7 Over and Out. Probe 7 Over and Out is certainly memorable. um, I did actually enjoy it. I thought it was, if you detach it from all other Shaggy God stories, I thought on its own it's quite good. Um, so yeah, there we go. Just realizing now that the lights are going down here that it's turning. Come on, you still your batteries are dead. Oh, there we go. Turn on Skull Island there. So yeah, yeah, Stop at Willoughby, 60mm Shrine, The Intruders would be definitely my top 3 Twilight Zone episodes. Oh yeah, also the one with Buster Keaton is a really good one as well. I love. I mean, a lot of people don't like that one. I've discovered, but I actually do. I think it's ingenious how it shifts from like silent movie to modern day, and the fact that it's a comic take on sort of Rod Serling's vendetta against nostalgia. So it's I like that one too. Tales of Terror was really good. Yeah. Peter Lorre was a real standout. Tales of Terror. Tales of Terror, Cask of Amontillado. That is the standout piece. Like Facts in the Case of M. Valdemar is also like blue. But Cask of Amontillado, because you get Vincent Price and Peter Lorre together, and they are comic gold. Those two. Um, they are great, and that's like the first one to pair them together in a comedic role, and it's directly from that then we get A Comedy of Terrors, which is one of my favorite movies. So yeah, Tales of Terror is great, and it's cool how they mixed it up after Premature Burial, because after Premature Burial, like there's nothing left to do, right? That's the perfect Poe movie. So all right, let's mix it up, and we'll do Tales of Terror, and we'll do this anthology thing, and yeah, the Black Cat, Morella. Yeah, oh no, the Black Cat is the Cask of Amontillado. Yeah, they blended those two together. Yeah, is Morella is nice and spooky, and it's got all the spooky stuff with the cobwebs and everything. Black Cat is just comic gold, and Facts Case of M. Valdemar is a great like creepy lead up to sort of when they start doing more of the Lovecraft sort of stuff, right? Like Haunted Palace. Um, because Facts in the Case of M. Valdemar was like direct inspiration for Lovecraft's Cool Air. So you get that going on there. So yeah, it's a neat little just like little short spurt of each different thing you can kind of do with Poe. Um, it's a great movie. I would say it's certainly up there for me in the Poe cycle and in the broader Poe cycle, and specifically those ones made by Corman. Um, in fact, specifically of the ones made by Corman is probably in that order: Premature Burial and then Tales of Terror. Um, yeah, I've got a lot of posters in my room for the 80s, 90s, 2000s movies like Return of the Jedi, Dark Crystal, 80s Dune, Tremors, GMK. Cool, nice. Yeah, I've this hypothetical project of like a home movie theater thing. If I was going to do it as like an old-fashioned movie palace, so like a lot of red brocade and gold and stuff. What are the posters I picked out? Um, the Mummy, 1932 Mummy poster, which is great, great poster. Footlight Parade, But if my wife wouldn't let me have that one, so just have some nudity on it, then Flying Down to Rio would be my next pick to replace that one. There is a great poster for a middling Roy Rogers movie called The Golden Stallion. It's a great poster. And I mean, Roy Rogers movies are basically interchangeable. So, um, whatever. It's just a great poster, and it sort of represents Roy Rogers and westerns and stuff. And there's a Disney cartoon, the Mickey Mouse one called Symphony Hour, which is a great sort of Art Deco poster. And then Marx Brothers, it's either Animal Crackers or Duck Soup, um, but like that really like sort of almost abstract Art Deco sort of poster of the Marx Brothers. Um, those would be like my picks for sort of like a 1930s movie palace themed home theater. Um, yeah. Peter Lorre also worked again with Vincent Price in The Raven and Comedy of Terrors. Yes. I even have both Japanese and American posters of King Kong versus Godzilla. Cool. That is great. Yeah, Japanese posters are interesting because they're not very artistic. Like they're sort of these photo montages. But they're cool with if you're seeing the fonts and all the text in an artistic way. They're kind of cool. They have this. I was actually watching a video on this today from the NHK of sort of Showa retro and how kids these days are getting into Showa retro stuff. So the mid-century, like 50s and 60s, and even up to the 80s, sort of Japanese aesthetics. It's which definitely those posters have in spades for sure. Some came from Arrow Video Blu-ray releases and G-Fan magazine. Cool. Did you ever see Death Race 2000 on WB's remake? I have not seen Death Race 2000. Did you ever see The Terror with Boris Karloff and Jack Nicholson? Yes, I have seen The Terror. It exists. It is a movie that exists. There's not much to say about The Terror, is there? Like, it's a movie. It exists. It's definitely not one of Roger Corman's highlights. He would probably even agree with that. It was just sort of made to knock something out because they had the cast and the crew and the time, and they're like, all right, we might as well just film something over a couple of days here that we have left over and knock it out and slap it into a double feature and put it in the drive-ins, like whatever. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, it eh, it is a film. Do you ever see Not of This Earth? That movie, excuse me, was remade at least twice for some reason. I cannot recall off the top of my head if I've seen Not of This Earth. So I'm gonna have to do what I always do here. What I'm really doing a lot tonight is checking Not of This Earth. I assume you mean the 57 version. Oh yeah. Yeah, that one. Yes, I have seen that one. Of course I've seen that one. That is one of the ones I saw recently. Yes, and the guy with the eyes. Yes, I have seen that one. It is fine. Yes. Okay. Now that we're clear on what it is that it is. Sorry. Again, I have a lot of movies floating around up in my head. Yeah, I liked it. It was fine. I liked the sort of creepiness of the aliens. Sorry, I'm just trying to like recollect it. I only watched it a couple days ago. Yeah, sorry. It's also like getting later in my time, and this is now you're seeing like the effects of my job catching up with me. It's like what's the things happening? But yes, the stealing the blood, the rabies. Yeah. Yeah, it's fine. It's good. I enjoyed it. Um, Obviously not as much as other ones because I didn't even remember the title. But yeah, no, it's good. It's fine. I did like the yeah again the playing up how they played up the aliens as this sort of like, yeah, otherworldly premise. It reminded me a bit of actually of the first episode of the original Doctor Who, of how they sort of, how Ian Chesterton and Ian and Barbara figure out that Susan is an alien, is by what, her advanced knowledge of some subjects and her total lack of knowledge about like little trivial day-to-day things. Yeah, reminded me a bit of that. Recalled that for me. I had a problem for a while where I would keep buying old movie posters to the point that I have half a basement filled with them. Yeah, well, if you have nowhere to put the poster, stop buying posters. And if you buy one, something else has to go, right? That's how you keep it. You keep it down. Yeah, that's why I haven't like gone over the top with a lot of posters. Like you can't really see it right now because I have the sidebar in the way. But I've got over here. I have yeah, my Bates Motel sign. This is a poster by Doug Pagosh of um, monsters at a monster rally, and then just off to the side, I've got some Kong posters right there. That's actually my favorite Kong poster right up there, and this one I just sort of ended up getting from a friend of mine. I'm not I'm not going overboard with buying the Kong posters specifically, because I don't have anywhere really to put them. When I get a space to do that at some point in my life, wherever it might be, however it might be, if it even ever happens, then I could see expanding the Kong poster collection a bit. There's still another like 2 or 3 that I really like, so just getting those at some point, maybe, depending on again the space and if my wife lets me, whatever. But None of this Earth is a lot like Day the Earth Stood Still, except the alien is evil. Yeah. Well, I mean, Day the Earth Stood Still, I wouldn't exactly say Michael Rennie's Alien is a whole barrel of laughs either. It's like, humans, shape up or we will kill you all. Um, he's still giving that latent threat there, which I'm not super fond of. He's just doing it in this very like supercilious, like I am so enlightened kind of way. It's actually why I like Plan 9. It has that scene where the alien is not being all superior, but he's actually freaking out, and then the guy decks him. Um, so, um, ever see Beast from the Haunted Cave? Yes, I have seen that one, but don't ask me to remember the plot. Just bringing it back up here so I can remember it. Directed by Monty Hellman. Bank robbers fleeing the snow who outrun foul giant spider monsters feed on humans. Yeah, produced by Gene Corman. Yeah, I've seen it, but again, don't ask me to remember any of it. You've seen Star Crash. I've not seen Star Crash. The Beast from Haunted Cave was actually remade as Creature from the Haunted Sea. Oh, okay, same script. Interesting. I have seen and remember Creature from Haunted Sea. I enjoyed Creature from Haunted Sea because it is ridiculous. So, especially like that first scene where he turns around and has that terrible mustache on, that just makes me die. Like every time I've watched it. Klaatu had a more serene personality for some reason. Yeah, well, it's like a Jesus allegory. He's all like enlightened and stuff. It's like, okay, I guess. I find him kind of douchey. So, like, it's just, I would find him more endearing if he wasn't threatening humanity with destruction. I have too much Blu-ray movies. I already own mostly the 4K release. I normally take them out and put them in Blu-ray boxes and display the 4K boxes. Fair enough. I have an entire system for I make my own slipcases for DVDs and Blu-rays. So they're all consistent. It's like totally an OCD thing. It began with me needing to physically condense the size of my collection because I was getting married. So like I already had like pretty much my entire DVD rack filled. And then it's like, oh, and I'm gonna get married, and my wife's bringing her DVDs into this too. So I need to like, I got rid of some things, and then I had to like just physically condense the rest of it. So I started getting like these like slim cases and these 2-disc slim cases and multi-disc things that you give it 4 or 6 discs in the same space as a regular as like one DVD case, stuff like that. And then I had to make like slips to put in there, and that became a whole because I enjoy doing light graphic design. Like I'm doing, where is it? This side over here. Like all the time I do my own thumbnails, and I do these sidebars and things like that. I enjoy doing some light graphic design, and so that's become this big thing with like how I do my DVD collection. If you look at my video on touring my video collection, you'll see how I do it. So, but yeah, I don't distinguish like DVDs, Blu-rays, whatever. As long as it fits in the case, it's fine. So I do it that way. You have to see Star Crash, awesome movie. Okay, duly noted. There's an old silent film museum about an hour away from where I live that recently showed Plan 9 for a sci-fi festival. It was a lot of fun. Nice. I love Plan 9. Plan 9 is the best. Did a whole video on why Plan 9 is almost great, and when it falls short of being great, it like pratfalls. It's awesome. Do I like the Day the Earth Stood Still remake? I have not seen the remake, because why? Glad you took the name Mr. Carpenter. Definitely a lot of Jesus parallels with that character. Yes, there were. He even died and was resurrected. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I know. Yeah, they laid it on a little thick. That might be part of why I'm also like, meh. Because it's like a little too thick. Some of that stuff. If you marry a person, you also marry their DVD collection. That's why I will never get married. Also, I'm a romantic, but also the DVDs. I mean, fair enough. Fair enough. It is a tit for tat. That is marriage. Marriage is very much about, I say this is now we're approaching our 10th anniversary at the end of August this year. It's a lot of back and forth, a lot of give and take. You can't expect anything from your spouse that you're not willing to give your spouse. So, if I'm going to make my wife watch Roger Corman movies, I have to watch Jane Austen movies. That's just the way it is. And that is fine, because Jane Austen is also awesome. So, there we go. Academy Award winning actor Richard Chamberlain was in Star Crash as Emperor of the Universe. Nice. I'm guessing that he did not win the Academy Award for Star Crash, though. I think I've seen clips of Star Crash, but I've never actually watched the movie. But yeah, marriage is the golden rule. Do unto others, you'd have them do unto you. And that includes what movies you watch. A command to stop the flow of time. I guess that's a Star Crash quote. Sorry, I'm starting to get like tired here. This is having a job, especially a job where like you talk to people all day. I mentioned I work in the Museum and Heritage Field. Okay, I'm not going to say where exactly I'm working, but yeah, it's a lot of talking and on your feet and stuff. So, and I had a day off and I went driving 3 hours to a national park. So there you go. So, Star Crash distributed by New World Pictures. That I don't know. Well, I can just look it up. Because I have Chrome over here. Star Crash. 78. Oh, yeah. Carolyn Monroe. There you go. Hard to go wrong with that. Star Crash was distributed by New World Pictures. What's your favorite remake? Ooh. Can I even have a favorite remake? Don't I just reject remakes out of hand? To think about that. Do I even have a favorite remake? I mean, technically, like Tarzan the Ape Man is a remake. Well, let's think. Is it a remake when it's based off of the same source material as a previous version, right? Like, would you say that a new version of Dracula is a remake of a previous version of Dracula? Or would you just say they're both based off Dracula? So if we were to eliminate that, like readaptations of prior source material, and say no, this has to be a remake of a movie that doesn't have its separate source material. I'm sure I do. I can't think of one off the top of my head though. Yeah, that's tough. Ooh, that's a tough question because I'm so ordinarily I'm so like anti remake. So, and I feel like there is something like something that got remade in the 80s or 90s or whatever that doesn't even feel like a remake. That is just a good movie on its own, and it just incidentally happens to have been based on something else. But nothing is coming to mind. Oh, that's gonna haunt me now. That is gonna haunt me. Jacob says The Thing. Queen says The Fly. I don't know about that, but again, that's my biases. I could definitely see where The Thing and The Fly are more modern than the originals. But yeah, I mean, like there was that whole phase in the 80s where they were remaking them. There's the Blob one, right? I would agree that The Thing and The Fly and even The Blob are definitely more modern. So they have more modern cinematic sensibilities to them. And I can see an argument for how they tease out themes latent in the originals and make it more visceral and more accessible to a more modern audience. Granted that these movies are like 40 years old now. I could see somebody watching John Carpenter's Thing and getting more from it than watching Thing from Another World, because Thing from Another World has the access barrier of it being a 50s sci-fi movie, and you kind of have to understand the language, the cinematic language of 50s sci-fi movies for The Thing from Another World to be accessible. Whereas John Carpenter's The Thing, like that's because it's closer. It's still sort of behind a veil of 80s movies. And 80s movies are their own thing too. But an average modern person today would find John Carpenter's The Thing more accessible than the original Thing from Another World. So I see that argument. But I mean, my preference is for the classic stuff, right? So I liked Thing from Another World, and that is going to come up in my RKO series eventually, when I get around to it. The original Fly, again, I preferred that one, because it is the classic. It's got Vincent Price in it. The original Blob, I think, is great because it is such a time capsule of its era. Like, what makes the Blob so much fun is that it is such a 50s movie. Plus, the 80s one really sets off my body horror. So, that's another thing that makes 80s movies a little bit problematic for me, is that I really feel body horror keenly. So the concept of having parts of your body bitten off, being absorbed into some alien entity, to be digested by a blob while you're still alive and screaming, that does not make me feel good on the inside. So I tend to avoid movies that really touch off the body horror for me. Um, yeah, so I'm still trying to think if I have a favorite remake. And it is, if we eliminate movies that are just based on the same source material. So, like Disney's Beauty and the Beast is not a remake of Jean Cocteau's Beauty and the Beast. They're just both based on Beauty and the Beast. Okay. Do I have a favorite remake? God, that's gonna haunt me forever. Until I can have a look at my DVD collection and be like, okay, yes, there it is. That's the one. That's the one that I like. Yeah, I feel like I gotta have one, but I can't think off the top of my head what it is. Still gonna have to come back to that. Roger Corman produced a low-budget horror film called Dementia 13. Some guy named Francis Ford Coppola directed it. Yeah. Francis Ford Coppola, I heard that name somewhere before. I think he, made some, Dracula or something, maybe? I don't know. Who even knows? Thank goodness the Blob hasn't been remade again. Yeah. Aren't we ripe for a Blob remake? Well, they had a Thing remake recently. Have I ever been to Blobfest? I have not been to Blobfest. I would love to go to Blobfest. But it is such a sort of remote location. It's not like I can go to this place and there's all these other things that I can also do in addition to going to Blobfest. There's nothing else around there that I want to see. So it's like going specifically for Blobfest. Um, I don't know if I love the Blob that much that I would make that trip for doing that. But if I could do it easily, I would love to go to Blobfest. My biggest problem with Blobfest, I don't know whether I would want to be in the theater or watching the run. Because either one would be a load of fun, right? Because those of you who don't know, so Blobfest is an annual festival held at the town in Pennsylvania where the Blob was filmed. And they have a big street festival and sci-fi festival, all sorts of stuff going on. And sort of the peak event in Blobfest is to watch the Blob in the theater that's in the movie. You can watch the Blob in there. And then at the point where the Blob attacks and everyone runs out of the theater, that's when you get to run out of the theater. And so they have the Blob run. So everyone just piles out of the theater and runs down the street, and there's people lined up all down the street watching this, and taking photos and whatever else. And everybody's in costumes and all sorts of stuff. And it looks like a load of fun. It looks like such a load of fun. And I do love the Blob a lot. Surprising amount, actually. Because it's not a great movie on its own, but it's such a time capsule that it's hard not to love it. So I would love to go to Blobfest. It's just do I want to spend the money? Do I want to make that trip just for this event? And that's a hard question to answer, especially right now, because financially we haven't fully recovered from COVID and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, thanks Rex, keep me up. Nobody ever mentions Frankenstein Unbound, one of Corman's most ambitious films. Do you remember Raul Julia as Dr. Frankenstein? Yes. What's my favorite Ray Harryhausen movie? Mine's Valley of the Gwangi, which is my favorite movie of all time. Harryhausen. Yeah, Valley of Gwangi is the one I probably watch the most of Harryhausen's films. I do like Earth vs. the Flying Saucers. That's a lot of fun. But Valley of Gwangi, because like, yeah, it's cowboys and dinosaurs. See, that's one I can make an exception for, right? After my whole big speech before about like dinosaur movies and why I don't watch them all. See ya, Rex. Thanks for joining us. After a whole big speech about dinosaur movies, if it's got some crazy hook to it, like it's a weird western, like Valley of the Gwangi, then I'm like fine with it. Like fine, okay, cool, I can accept. It's got whatever, old timey dinosaurs, whatever. But yeah, I can accept Valley of Gwangi. So yes, I do enjoy Valley of Gwangi. I would probably say, just for how many times I've rewatched it, I would say that is probably my favorite Ray Harryhausen movie. First Men in the Moon is also a good one as well. So I think it was the last movie Corman directed, Queen. Okay. My dad prefers the remake of The Thing because of how the alien acts, with scientists saying how advanced the alien is, or only to act like a Frankenstein monster when it's on screen. Yeah, fair enough. The remake of The Thing is actually close to the original story. Yeah, fair enough. Love Valley Gwangi. I thought you said First Man in the Moon was your favorite Harryhausen film. Sure. Yeah. Thank you for keeping track of that, Martin. Maybe I did. In which case, fine. I will go with that then. But then Valley Gwangi's close. So, or maybe I'm just impressionable. That's what people said. James Franciscus was in Valley of Gwangi. He's also in Beneath Planet of the Apes. Okay, now Martin's got me thinking about it again. And yeah, I would say, okay, yes, I will say that First Men in the Moon was my favorite Harryhausen film, with Valley of Gwangi being a close second. And then Earth vs. the Flying Saucers following up from that. That sounds about right. Oh, and then there's Mysterious Island as well. We'll put Mysterious Island before Earth vs. the Flying Saucers. Why are we talking about Harryhausen? This is a Roger Corman night. So, Ray Harryhausen can have his own night. It's one other night. Real question is, what are my like top favorite Corman movies? If I was going to put them in like a top 10. I think we already know Premature Burial would be my top for Roger Corman. Again, just a brilliant, just a brilliant pure distillation of everything from the Poe movies. Second, Tales of Terror would be the second of the Poe movies. But I would be inclined to say that Little Shop of Horrors might be my second favorite Corman movie overall. Because it is great. Although I do, I mean, that one, it's also like there we go. There's a remake that's actually good. Is Little Shop of Horrors. Because the remake is so different. Like it's let's turn this into a off-Broadway musical. But the original ending with the 80s remake, not the theatrical ending, but the proper ending. As bleak as it might be. But Little Shop of Horrors would certainly be on there. And then I would say War of the Satellites. I was impressed by. And then we'd be getting to other Poe movies again. Oh, and The Man with the X-Ray Eyes. That would be on the list of top 10 Corman movies as well. Because I do like The Man with the X-Ray Eyes. It's got Ray Milland in it. Of course I like it. I'm talking here. Mysterious Island was a sequel to 20,000 Under the Sea. Yes. Mysterious Island was as close to a sequel of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea that somebody who is not Disney could make. So, I have a hard time with my favorite Ray Harryhausen film. It's either Jason the Argonaut, Live the Gwangi, and Seventh Voyage of Sinbad. Yeah. Little Shop of Horrors might be Corman's most famous film. Yeah, I could see that, due in no small part to the remake, right? In fact, there was just a Broadway show of Little Shop of Horrors like last year or year before. Um, Dick Miller was in War of the Satellites. Yep, he had a lead role as a scientist in that one. That was fighting the aliens that were trying to stop humankind from exploring the stars. And in fact, it occurred to me as I was watching War of the Satellites that that could easily slot into being like the sort of prequel to any number of like 50s and 60s sci-fi movies and TV shows. Like you could slot War of the Satellites as like a prequel to Forbidden Planet. You could slot it into being a prequel to Star Trek. Like it works so well as like humanity's first attempts to get into space and it being frustrated by an alien intelligence and defeating that and carrying on, and then you pick up like a century or two later to Forbidden Planet or Star Trek, like the original series or whatever. So yeah, War of the Satellites is like a prequel to every 50s and 60s futuristic movie. I wonder that there was an alternate ending to the 70s invasion of the Body Snatchers was planned. Yeah. What about Roger Corman beating everyone else and making a Fantastic Four movie? Poor Fantastic Four. Yeah, well, that was certainly a thing that happened, so he could retain the rights. Um, yeah, I don't know. I mean, Fantastic Four. I have a whole thought process about Fantastic Four and how it should have been used for the MCU, but hey, Disney isn't paying me, so whatever. I do like the font for the new Fantastic Four movie, though. It's a good font. Captures the whole retro vibe. Only produced that one, yeah. All right, so where were we? We were okay. So I was talking my top 10. So on my top 10, Premature Burial, Tales of Terror, X Man with X-Ray Eyes, Little Shop of Horrors. I would say Creature from the Haunted Sea would be on there in my top 10. This is in no particular order right now, except Premature Burial is definitely at the top. So Creature from the Haunted Sea is definitely in there. War of the Satellites is in there. Did I ever say X the Man with the X-Ray Eyes? So where are we at? Okay, so Premature Burial. I should write this down. Premature Burial, Tales of Terror, X. I'll say it's X. Little Shop of Horrors, Creature from the Haunted Sea, War of the Satellites. Okay. And I feel like I could just pop like any given other Poe movie in there as well. Um, Wasp Woman was surprisingly good. Surprisingly, he says. So that. Yeah, and then it's sort of like it's really kind of just open for Poe movies after that. So I would say Haunted Palace. Um, Pit and the Pendulum. And ooh, what would I say after that? I mean, The Raven. Some of the comedy in The Raven's kind of cringy as well. So, but I'm looking at it's like, what are the other options? Um, I feel like seeing Attack the Crab Monster would just be because it's the most recent one I've seen. Um, See, this is like the hard part. Whenever I try to make like a top 10, it's the first ones I know easily. Like, oh yeah, that's the best one. That's the second best one for sure. But when I get down to like 7, 8, 9, 10, it's like there's a lot of ones that are equally good down there. Um, but yeah, I mean, of equal merit, I would say It Conquered the World, Not of This Earth, Attack of the Crab Monsters, all kind of have equal merit in there. To fill out that 9th spot, or that 10th spot, sorry, in favorite Corman movies. So, but then, yeah, better. Yeah, like, then you could easily just put, like, Mask of Red Death or Tomb of Lygia or House of Usher in there, too. Yeah. Yeah, doesn't matter. Nobody's paying me to come up with a top 10 list. Um, so, anyway, they'll be sort of like, those, not in order yet, but that would be sort of my top 10 list of Corman movies that he actually directed. Um, it probably would have been better than Fanforstic. I would be interested in seeing a director's cut of Fanforstic. Um, because it's got some kind of compelling. See, now after what I said about body horror, I'm like, actually, Fantastic Four as a body horror movie would be kind of weirdly interesting. And so you see echoes of that in the movie that was made. But yeah, I don't know. And like I said, I have my thoughts about how they should have done Fantastic Four for the MCU, but which is to say they should have. If it were up to me, if I was running the MCU, I would have just ended Endgame with a post-credit scene of a mutant being born, and then you spend the next couple phases introducing mutants, culminating in X-Men. So you have Spider-Man, his amazing friends, Weapon X, Vision and the Scarlet Witch, stuff like that. And um, parallel to that, you have Fantastic Four, who'd be doing like the sort of like wacky gonzo stuff, like Mole Man, Annihilus, stuff like that. Like the wacky crazy stuff. And while the X-Men is like the serious, like topical stuff. Um, and then it all sort of, those phases, the second decade of Marvel would then culminate in all of Earth's heroes joining together to fight Galactus. That's how I would have done it, but whatever. I don't work for Disney. Disney is super intent on losing money, so I bet the big budget Disney remake won't be half as good as Corman's version. Well, who knows? So they've already picked a cast that I would not have picked, so whatever. Nice font, though. Didn't Corman also produce Targets? That movie was way ahead of its time. I did not even know that movie. So, Well, it seems like we're approaching the 2 hour mark here, and we've gone off on all sorts of tangents talking about stuff inspired by Corman, which I suppose in its own way is a testament to Roger Corman and his impact on the film industry. That a conversation that starts about him goes off in all these other tangents because he touched so much stuff. He touched sort of how Hollywood was done and giving birth to new Hollywood. He touched so many different genres, so many different subjects, so many different things that were remade and readapted and so on, and even touched in superhero films as we're going here with doing his version of Fantastic Four. So it's sad that we lost him, but at the same time, dude was 98 years old. Like that is very impressive. Um, he certainly lived his full life, as it were, and produced a body of work that, while not necessarily of the highest caliber of quality, and sort of with his financial limitations, is still like virtually unmatchable to have directed or produced that many films, especially. Um, and Dark Corners said that he always did it his way. He had his brief working with studios that never worked out because he wanted to do the movie his way, even if it meant having these financial limitations. That it was always about doing it his way and doing the movies he wanted to make, movies that he thought were worth making, even if they weren't up to the same financial status or whatever as big studio movies. So for that, we will remember Roger Corman and continue to enjoy those movies, those perfect low budget movies not nearly bad movies, much worse movies than anything Roger Corman ever made, floating around out there. Always entertaining and thought-provoking in their own right. And certainly accessible and a lot of fun to watch with all of their financial limitations. So you're all talking about targets here. I'm waxing poetical about Roger Corman, and you're talking about targets. Mass Shooter, oh yeah. So, Monster from the Ocean Floor, one of Corman's earliest films. Oh, interesting. But on that note, at the 2-hour mark here, I'm going to. Oh, we have to do. Well, I mean, previews are not necessarily much to speak about, as it were, after everything I've been saying here. But let's we'll just do that for a second. Of course, we have the part 2 of Walt Disney at RKO coming up here. After that, it's supposed to be a Tarzan one that I haven't written or filmed yet. So that might actually be a bit of... This might mark the hiatus until after summer. Not sure yet. But we'll see. But yeah, the next video queued up that actually is done and ready and good to go is the Walt Disney at RKO, part 2, where we talk about sort of the post-war years, and Disney's rise to prominence, and his eventual split from RKO. And then the next live stream next month is going to be what was supposed to be this month's live stream, that got shunted back because I wanted to honor Roger Corman and his legacy. But we're going to do a live tier list of King Kong's greatest monsters, King Kong's greatest enemies. We're going to be doing that whole S tier, A tier, all that sort of stuff, putting together that inspired by GXK and the fact that Scar King is like super cool. And I really enjoy him as a bad guy. So that's what's coming up here. Again, as I've been saying here with my new job and everything, and summer being sort of the harvest season as far as work that I'm capable of doing as a professional talker. So I'm not going to have a lot of time to put together videos, but so it might be a bit of a hiatus over summer, but I'll definitely try and keep the live streams going at least, because those are relatively low impact, low prep compared to a video. So at least be doing those. So yeah, anyways, in the meantime, in between time, that's it for another edition of the Monster Kid Cory live stream. And thank you very much for joining me here, and the regulars, and if there's any non-regulars popping in as well, thank you so much for being here and supporting the channel, and for helping to raise a toast, raise a glass, as it were, to Roger Corman and his legacy. And with that, yeah, why didn't Toho ever have King Kong fight Ghidorah? Copyright, undoubtedly. But he did in the pages of that magazine that I pulled that picture from. So with that, thank you very much, and good night.
And now, folks, it's time to say goodnight. We sincerely appreciate your patronage and hope we've succeeded in bringing you an enjoyable evening of entertainment. Please drive home carefully and come back again soon. Good night.